everybody, and welcome back. It is episode 3 of the Operation Sports NBA 2K MyGM video blog. I'm Mike Lowe with Operation Sports, and we are at the end of Season 1. So, a lot to talk about in this episode. All right, so there you have it. See the award winners there. Let's take a look at standings. Let's take a look and just kind of see how things look here in each conference at the end of the year. San Antonio, number 1 seed in the West, 61 wins, followed by Golden State, who kind of underachieved perhaps, with just quote unquote 54 wins. Portland, 51, 50-win season for Oklahoma, round out your top 4. Houston comes in 5th with 49 wins. Then Memphis, the 6th seed, 7th seed. Clippers, just over 500, and right at 500. It looks like Utah grabs the 8th and final playoff spot. Denver missing with the same record there, so tiebreaker goes to Utah. Minnesota falling short, just under 500. New Orleans with the same record there. Lakers, and then there's Austin, 37. We tied with the Lakers there, 37 wins. Dallas Mavericks, and then rounding out the Western Conference with 26 wins each, Phoenix and Sacramento. So perhaps a few surprises mixed in there. If we go to the Eastern Conference, looking at the top, Cleveland gets to the 70-win plateau. So 70 wins for them. 17 games behind is the 2 seed Toronto. Milwaukee with 48 wins in the 3rd seed. 4th seed, the Bulls. The Mallards, there's our surprise playoff team, right? Coming in 5th. They will start the playoffs on the road, it seems. But they made the playoffs as an expansion team, so good for them. 45-win season. Atlanta there, the 6th seed. The Pistons, the 7th seed, and then the Pacers round out the playoffs in the Eastern Conference with 39 wins. Celtics just missed by a game. 76ers get a little bit closer than they have in the previous seasons. The Knicks, 50-loss season, also a 50-loss season for the Heat. As the Wizards, Orlando with 52 losses, Charlotte with 52 losses, and Brooklyn, I believe, is the worst team in the league with 57 losses there. Yeah, so there are the standings as we take a look there. Let's take a look at how the Grackles roster looks. There have been a few trades that we made since then. And I guess we'll actually just start with the transaction report, right? If I just kind of go back and I guess look around the last time we were looking at this, right? We did sign Norris Cole, as I mentioned. And I'll just zip it here and just scroll through and like look. There were some coach firings, nothing crazy. There weren't any crazy trades of LeBron James or anything psycho like that some people have seen. Everything seemed pretty realistic. So I'll scroll through here. I'll pause on the transactions that we did as the Grackles, and you can take a look and see, and then we'll take a closer look at the roster. So you just saw the Grackles' first trade there of Andrew Bogut. re-signing of Reggie Bullock. And here's another trade. I think this is the last one we did. Dellavedova going to the 76ers for Jeremy Grant. And we did re-sign Taj Gibson, as was the discussion from the previous episode there. So happy to do that. Also came pretty cheap. So our re-signings were pretty inexpensive. Very happy with that. So here's how the roster looks at the end of the season for the Grackles. We'll go by position. Norris Cole, who will be a free agent. I like Norris Cole, though. I think he had a good year. And all things considered, I wouldn't mind having him back. Ty Lawson will be walking away. So both these guys will be losing. Isaiah Whitehead will be able to keep around. But let's go to the contracts here. Yeah, he'll be around for a little bit there as a second-round pick. J.C. Lawson's going to be gone. No bird years. I had no chance to re-sign him. Same thing with Cole, as he was picked up as a free agent. So we're going to be a little short at point guard heading into the offseason and draft. Shooting guard, Norman Powell, probably our MVP, our team MVP here, had a nice year. He'll be back next year. We'll definitely pick up that option. Marcus Thornton is a guy who also did not have the chance to re-sign, but with those bird years, we, if need be, can probably match really any offer that he'll get, and shouldn't be too crazy to try and bring him back if we so choose. Cephalosha, we're going to let walk. Contract's up. Jeremy Grant, who we picked up in a trade, former second-round pick himself. So we'll pick up that option for some depth there. Jake Layman, another guy we picked up in a trade, also will be back, and also another second-round pick from last year's draft. Bullock, we extended there. You can see he took a pay cut, so we were completely fine doing that. We like Reggie Bullock, nice three-point shooter. Taj Gibson, we did re-sign, also taking a massive pay cut. So again, that's to be debated. Is this something? Is the game allowing renegotiated contracts to be a little bit too easy? I mean, this was pretty much what he asked for, and so I was just happy to meet that. So we got Taj Gibson back, pretty free and clear there. It's up to him if he wants to come back at age 33. Either way, we could survive. I think Izeli, I think I'm saying his name right. I'm happy with him. He's been a really nice player. Had some career highs as a Grackle this year coming over from Portland, and he'll be back next year. Roy Hibbert will be gone, but again, a player maybe consider bringing back. Sheikh Diallo also will be back at a big contract. So we have some depth at center. So we'll see if we need Hibbert. We can see how these guys end up developing here. Steven Zimmerman, same thing. And that's it. So you can see nothing crazy, but there's some depth. If we have anything, it is some depth. I did like Norman Powell, as I mentioned, had a nice year. If we look at him, 17 points, almost 18 points per game. And yeah, he did a nice job. Here we go. So you can see he doubled his minutes. I mean, you can see he really had a breakout year, more than doubled his points. And that's a good sign. So played some decent defense. Shooting percentages were low. So really, he has the potential to be an even better player than that. Maybe fatigue's a challenge for him. Let's look at what his fatigue rating is. Stamina 80. So not terrible, not great. May had trouble keeping up with the minutes we were giving him. So maybe he's a better sixth man. So we'll see what we can bring about here with Norman Powell. Yeah, overall, I was really happy again with Norris Cole. He had just kind of quietly had a nice year. Again, if you look at his minutes compared to last year, they're about the same. Points increased. The assists went up a lot. Steals went up. Shooting percentages were up. So I really like Norris Cole. He's a guy I would consider bringing back, as we do need some depth at point guard. So anyway, that's the roster. Stats-wise, I'm not going to bore you looking through all the stats. I mean, at this point, it's maybe something we'll look at in another episode. But let's just say we have some work to do, obviously. I did find it interesting when I looked at sort of the historic stats. I gotta think where these are now. So in the records section, if I went to NBA records, there were a few, and I'll just kind of skip. Like 3-point shots was something interesting. Where if I flip over to season, we can see some 2016s here. 3 points made. So Curry sets the new sets it. I'm sorry, 2017, right? So Lillard I should say, gets a so he's right up there. Norman Powell, there you go, number 4 all time for a season. McCollum. So we are seeing the game attempt some more 3-pointers perhaps than some would like to see. But again, I think that's the trend you're seeing in the NBA. Let's see if it just shows 3-pointers made. I think that was the one. So anyway, as I flip through here, you can always pause the video and take a look and see if you can see free throw percentages, right? So maybe there's something here where these are a little bit too high out of the box. See a lot of guys who've set season records here with free throw attempts. So, or free throw percentage, I should say. But again, nothing big. Stuff like that could happen. Certainly players are getting better every year, probably not worse. Steals per game, we see a few players falling in that list. So, anyway, thought that was interesting to see those. Let's look at the goals and how we did meeting our goals this year. So far, I think we've met everything except for the original expansion draft of wanting to keep that age below 25. We did miss that one, but so far so good. He wanted me to trade Dellavedova, and we did. I'll probably be hiring a new scout for next year. And I actually posted on Twitter asking some folks at the 2K Studios about whether or not. So when you scout a player and you scout them 100% and you see the overall rating. So for instance, if I go into scouting and big board, if I look at Josh Jackson, he has been scouted 100%, and I can see that he's listed as an 80 overall. Okay, so is that the static rating, right? Is that the literal overall rating of him? Or is it based on my head scout's ability, which is a C? So for instance, could he really be rated like a 77? But my scout, who's not great, overinflated his rating. And I tweeted that out. I have not gotten a response on that, unfortunately, but curious to hear if we could get some information on there. So anyway, let me go back to the goals. And the goals that we have left, right, his demand to start with, we have 5 seasons to get into the playoffs. We did not make it, but we have some time. And that's something I was not expecting to get that first year. His wish list items that remain, he wants us to be profitable, and we are. I'll show you that. We're within range of having a profitable first season. We had a very low payroll, though, so something we need to be cautious of. We shouldn't go out and probably overspend too much unless we're very confident we're going to win a bunch more games. And then, like I said before, the scout rating, I think, shouldn't be a problem to adjust. I am a level 11 now. Most of that is from simming. I did play the last game of the year, which we lost. It was a close game, though. I think we lost by just a bucket. So that was pretty cool. And let's see here. That's, again, nothing really to report there, but just I did unlock some GM upgrades, which I won't bore you by showing. And the owners overall pretty happy with me. I'm happy with that. Our job security has increased 7 points more recently. And that's really what's going to matter here the most. I did actually, one of the unlockables I got was kind of talking him out of firing me if it ever comes to that. So I at least have one get out of jail free card coming. So team chemistry on the bottom, you can see 81%. Our fan interest is 100. Maybe those are a little too forgiving. Granted, we are an expansion team, so maybe we'll see if that starts to decline over the years as people kind of get used to the team being around and some of that excitement wears off. Team chemistry, maybe could it be a little high for a losing team? It's hard to say, but overall, everything seems to be working pretty well. And again, I think the big news to take out of this so far is that the Mallards made the playoffs, so that'll be exciting to watch when we get into that phase here of simming the playoffs. But before we do that, I wanted to mention a couple things that I've seen come up. I honestly don't remember if it was on the YouTube channel or if it was people on just the Operation Sports forum or on Twitter asking me, but a lot of people kind of saying, yeah, I really wish, for as beautiful as the design options are in this game, that they would let us go in and do a third uniform. And I agree. I think that'd be really cool. I was going to show you guys some things, but as you see, this is actually locked out until the start of the next season. It's just one of those things I can't really access at this point in time. But I did have some ideas about how you could possibly use a third jersey, and I'll probably show this in more detail later on. But what I'm thinking is when you go to upload your to teams, like the team that you created into the 2K share, what you could probably do, and I think this would work, is you could actually just make a kind of a duplicate, almost like an alternate away and an alternate home jersey, upload that as sort of a quote-unquote second team, and if you ever wanted to use a third jersey, just come in here and load that, and you can load that in as kind of your secondary jerseys, or say like a Christmas Day jersey or whatever it is you want to do. You can load those different teams in, and everything else would be the same, right? Everything's going to be exactly the same. But the jerseys you would import as being just a different jersey, but nothing else should ever change. So I'm not positive that would work in MyGM. I am positive it should work in my league, because you can do those instantaneous without any kind of approval needed. I know you can adjust your jerseys, no problem. I guess I just wonder if you import, if that becomes immediate or not. So that's what I'm not sure about, but we can check that on a later episode here. But I at least wanted to mention that as a possible workaround. I think that could be a cool option for those who are looking to, first and foremost, have some alternate uniforms. But again, you could do some different arena designs, maybe for the playoffs. You could have your playoff arena and things like that, which would look pretty cool, putting like the trophy on the floor and that sort of thing. So just some ideas there. Okay, so I mentioned we were going to simulate the playoffs, and then I also wanted to get some questions that have popped up on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, and that sort of thing. But let's go through. Here's the playoff bracket. Here is what we have at the end of the 2016 season. I've already showed you the standings, and I'll be curious to keep an eye on that Grackles team, or I'm sorry, the Mallards team there on the right-hand side for the Eastern Conference. Watching my Pistons, my hometown Pistons, the 7th seed in the East. Also, Golden State falling to a number 2 seed. Will they be able to live up to their expectations here? All is well that ends well, as they say. So let's do this. Let's simulate the first round and just see how things look. All right, so the Spurs take care of the Jazz in a sweep. The Thunder, 5 games over Houston. That's the 4-5 matchup there. Portland sweeps out Memphis, and Golden State takes care of the Clippers. So no real surprises. The home team won every single one of those series. Cleveland gets pushed to 7 games, but the defending champions do advance to the second round. The Bulls also go to 7 games in a tight series. We have our first upset with Atlanta, 6 seed, beating Milwaukee, the 3 seed, to advance. And then another huge upset here is Detroit sweeps Toronto to advance to the second round. So we're going to have either a 6 or 7 seed in the final 4. The rest is pretty straightforward. Again, the Mallards go a 7-game series, but they are done. So let's do the second round here. Boy, the Thunder just had a huge comeback. Let's take a close look at this series. I'm trying to think if you can see game by game. I can't remember if you can. I don't think we can. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Game 1. So Spurs go up 1-0. Spurs go up 2-0. Spurs led this series 3-0. And then Thunder win. Thunder tie it. Game 7 in San Antonio. The Thunder win. And they really did it in the fourth quarter there. You can see their comeback there in the fourth quarter. Had a big first quarter as well. So, wow. Quite the comeback there. So, Oklahoma pulls off the 4 seed. They're surprising some people, and yet another surprise here as Portland has ended Golden State's season far earlier than anyone probably expected with that roster. If we look at these games. Whoops. Let's go back to game one. Keep missing it. Game one, Portland wins on the road. Game two, Golden State ties it. They head back to Portland, where Portland takes the series lead, 2-1. They go up 3-1, and then in game five, Golden State wins that one, and then Portland closes it out at home in game six to eliminate Golden State. No big surprises here. Cleveland beats the Bulls 4-1, and Detroit pulls off another upset as the 7th seed to make it into the Final Four to face Cleveland. So, can Detroit continue the miracle season here? Let's simulate the third round. So we have a 7-game series here as Portland is the team to eliminate Oklahoma. Let's look at how this series went down. Trailblazers win game one at home. Game two, they also win, so they take a 2-0 lead. And then Portland goes up 3-0 by winning on the road. Oklahoma wins game four. Oklahoma wins game five, and of course they win game six to force the game seven, but it's all for naught as Portland does finally close out Oklahoma City in 7 games there. Cleveland disposes of Detroit, so Detroit's nice run is over, and it's going to be Portland and Cleveland in the finals with the Cavs looking for back-to-back championships. And Portland has swept them. Portland has won the NBA championship. They have swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. And here is our finals MVP, Damian Lillard. Averaged 33.5 points per game. And there you have it, folks. That is the end of the regular season. As I mentioned, we'll probably be taking a look here at the lottery. Just before we do that here, I did want to get to some questions that I had, and also just maybe a question to kind of leave us with to be thinking about. And I'll do that one now, I guess. The one spoiler I wanted you all to think about here is Kevin Durant. He's going to be a free agent. And Kevin Durant, as you very well know, played for the University of Texas, which is in Austin. And if he, perhaps after a disappointing season in Golden State, decides to opt out of his contract, is he someone that the Grackles could go after and throw a bunch of money at to try and bring him back to Austin? It's kind of the face of the franchise. We definitely need a small forward. And that's something to think about there. So maybe that's kind of the food for thought for this episode. So let me get into the questions that I did receive here from various social media locations. In no particular order, and again, I can't get to every single thing, but I did have a few of these pop up. And so let me take a look here. So this one's off of YouTube, and it's from, I'm going to probably pronounce this name wrong, but I believe it's Fami Raditya, something like that. They say, can you explain about MyGM training schedule and how to use it? Because some of my players are blanking about the training being super easy, and my staff said that the team is super rested and needed some rest and so on. Yeah, so training, I mean, there's a couple ways you can do training, right? I actually leave this on auto for the most part because I want this to simulate me having an actual staff. I mean, a general manager is not going to be going in and adjusting practice schedules and things like that. That's more of a coaching responsibility, and perhaps there's some input which I allow myself on the right-hand side there by setting the intensities and whether we rest and so on. And I think some of that's going to have to do with your actual trainer. I think some of it's going to have to do with kind of the player makeup and the player personality, and also even some of the like endurance badges that you see here in this particular mode. For instance, I know I've unlocked I think one of these so far, but if I go to GM upgrades and if I go to badges, let's see, there was one of these that had to do with what's it called, like endurance or stamina or something like that. Here it is, fatigue reduction. So I have level 1 of 3 on this, right? So if you get to a level 3, perhaps your players can handle the practice schedule that your trainer is recommending. Because what you're going to see early on in this mode is that it doesn't always mesh up. Your trainer wants to push these guys, and some of the players are going to have trouble keeping up with that. So by increasing this badge, I believe that's probably the way to combat that and kind of find that perfect balance of getting the most out of your players with also keeping them happy and also not allowing them to get overused or overworked or anything like that. So hopefully that answers your question there. Second question is also from YouTube, and this is from Dario182. It says, I really like the idea of MyGM. The only thing that still keeps me from playing it is the AI decision making when it comes to roster management and so on. Yeah, that's been a kind of a constant thing here, or a constant, I guess, criticism that I've seen on the forums. But again, if we look at this transaction report and we look at the trades that were made, there's nothing here that you could not convince me could not have happened, right? You have to keep in mind when these games are designed, they don't see these names. They don't necessarily know the player reputation. It's a bunch of numbers, right? The way that these players are represented in a piece of software, it's all numbers, whether it's the injury that a player may have or their injury history, that sort of thing. It's still all a numbers game when it comes to the game evaluating a proper trade. So it's really important that you look at that with a grain of salt, as they'd say. So don't focus so much on the names, perhaps. Look at the actual fit for the team. And some of these that I was looking at, especially the trades that the Grackles made, I was looking at this. I wanted to make sure that, wait a second, do the Sixers need a point guard? And they do. They only had the 2, and they had like 5 small forwards. So this trade made sense for the 76ers, for instance. So I think there's more to it there. You really need to look at it and trust it. And hey, some crazy trades do happen. Some crazy signings can happen, right? I mean, who would have thought, LeBron James, when he left for Miami, would re-sign with Cleveland? I mean, people were burning his jersey in the city of Cleveland. So you have to look at it and understand that sometimes just because it doesn't follow the real life script, that's okay, because the real life script sometimes can be a little zany as well, right? So let's see. Third and final question that I pulled up for this one. This comes from CJ Harry on YouTube, and it says, I love MyGM, but my only complaint would be for them to add the year-to-year saves feature. I do not simulate games, but with my real-life schedule, it is hard for me to complete just one season. I completely agree with you, CJ. I had probably the most common question I was asked this last week is, hey, do you play all your games or do you simulate them? And to answer it shortly, I simulate most because, just as you said, I can't carry this over. And for me to play all of these games, I'm only going to get maybe into the second season. And that's just, what fun is that? I want to be able to build this team up, especially as an expansion team. So I do play. I only played 3 games out of this season, and I lost all 3. The last game being the closest that I actually came. We lost by 2 points here to the Nets. So I do simulate most next year as this team starts to become more of kind of my build and we get our own rookies and things like that. I'll start playing some more games. But early on, I do simulate most. And to go back to your question, CJ, I also, my number one thing, I think it's actually in my signature on Operation Sports. If you're on the forums and you look at my signature, I try to give kind of like my fix list for each of the big sport games out there. The number one wish I have for NBA is to have those carryover saves just for that reason. I would love to play an 82 game season, take my time, really just kind of enjoy it and dig into it to be able to carry that over. And we'll see. I would be, I would say I would not be surprised if we see that next year. That was kind of my prediction. I almost think I asked that when I was at when I was talking to the 2K guys earlier this year before the reveal, and I know there was nothing specific mentioned. It was just kind of one of those things that was left unanswered. But I know it's something that they are interested in. I'll put it that way. It's what I was more or less told is it's harder to implement than most are realizing, but they're aware of it, that it is a need and a want. And I hope we end up seeing that. So very, very good question. And I too, CJ, I completely agree that would be awesome. Totally, totally awesome to see. And hopefully if they do it, it'd be nice if they could announce it now, because I'd almost want to start a new season over to work along with this one where I do play all 82 games and so on. So And got a nice little dog bark in there. Okay, so I wanted to end with the lottery I mentioned, right? Oh, yeah, I can show you the kind of the big board and where we stand with all those. Let me see. Prospect scouting. What I've been doing is mostly using the Draft Express ranking. That seems to be what I trust the most. And you can see we have a lot of these guys scouted 100. We're going to be picking, I think, like 14th or so. It looks like. Well, of course, there's the lottery still coming up, but we're slotted to have the 11th pick right now. That could change. So anyway, let me go back to prospect scouting. So that if you keep 11 in mind here, you can see, it's going to be hopefully one of these guys we'll be grabbing. I do have some favorites here, but again, with the 11th pick, if that's where we end up falling, probably going to be getting some depth, and I think that's okay. I am actually a big believer in depth, and I think in a sport even like basketball, where you can win sometimes with just a couple really, really good players, I think the way to combat that, because not every team can have 2 or 3 superstars, I think the way you combat that is with depth, personally. Um, depth is what can really overtake injuries. If you have proper depth, injuries should not slow you down, where it could slow a team like that down who only has a couple superstars that they mostly play through. So I'm okay getting somebody down here in kind of these mid round picks, because they're going to add to that depth, and they can be certain role players and things like that. So I'm excited to see where we end up. Even the second round pick, I hope, is somebody we can get to add some depth to. So we'll see. There's always some positioning we could do when the draft does come up. We looked at the team rival page last time, and this still has not changed yet. But again, we didn't make the playoffs. We don't have any real reason to have any sort of huge rivalries. But I did want to see how this begins to play itself out as we go through this. You can see it is tracking, of course, is tracking our record against these teams. So we'll see as that starts to develop. Look how close these teams are. It's kind of funny, right? So I should just move San Antonio to Austin. But that's okay. It's kind of fun. You see it in other places too. You got some teams that are still pretty close to one another, especially up this way. We have our own division of Texas teams, more or less. All right, let's see if there's anything else before we hit that advance button here. Because I would like to show you the lottery. If not, we'll start the next episode with lottery. Team finances, I mentioned, we are making a profit. I don't think it's going to be that high where it says $7 million, because some of that's just unallocated funds. So really, it's probably closer to about $2 million in profit. But still, that's good. I'm happy with that. Of course, we don't have any of the expansion players. No one on the expansion team having a top jersey sale, but here are the top jersey sales. And hey, if we get Kevin Durant, look at that, #1 jersey. That'd be pretty nice. Bringing some more money. I did not make any pricing adjustments. I haven't really messed with that. We have a lot of them to use, but for now, we didn't have the greatest attendance. 72%. Here's our profit, right? About $1 million. So, and that was just in ticket sales. So again, about a total of $2 million. Attendance was not great, so maybe that's something we can look to adjust. GM power rankings. I'm still not sure how this is determined. I mean, they had me ranked 6. I have no idea why. You have the Mallards team who made the playoffs as an expansion team. It should be #1, right? That's a heck of a performance there. I did notice one little glitch. Look at, you can see my team logo there is our Grackles logo. Watch when I go to the Mallards, it's also the Grackles logo. So one little goofy little glitch there. That's the only screen I've noticed where it does that. Power rankings. Let's see where the Mallards ended up. 13th. I think we were like 26, 21. And then 2K Sports has us as 23. And then Mark Spears has us as, where are we? 22. So, okay. Honestly, better than I thought. Better than I thought. Of course, we can't save anything. Oh, here's the All-Star participants, by the way, if you wanted to see those from this year. I already showed you the awards at the beginning. Grackle's history, nothing really to report just yet, but it's cool that it is tracking that, so that's nice. Let's look at some team stats here, and then we'll move on. Team stats and player stats, how about? So points per game, we were dead last in the league, points per game. So obviously a concern there. Norman Powell probably having trouble handling the expectation of being our top scorer. Our points against per game, also the lowest. So we did have, and this is simming, 79 of the games. So we had a good defense. We were holding our opponents to the league minimum points allowed. So that's not bad. I'm more looking for kind of outliers here, high and the lows, right? So we had a terrible shooting percentage. Only the Celtics were worse. Field goal attempts, we're just not shooting enough, right? Tied for last. Field goal percentage, incredibly low. So we need offense. There's no doubt about it. 3-pointers attempted, so nothing really showing there. 3-point percentage, also fairly low. Free throw percentage, also low. Free throw attempts, towards the bottom of the league in attempts. Offensive rebounds are a little high, and that's mostly because we're missing so many shots, probably, right? Defensive rebounds, very low. Rebounds per game, fairly low. Assists per game, dead last in the league. Blocks, pretty low. So it's almost like we need somebody who can score. We need a true big man. I mean, somebody who can really come in and try and help out with some of that low post defense. Fouls per game, we're not fouling very often. Maybe that's, can debate whether that's good or bad. Points off turnovers, very low. Second chance points, very low. Points in the paint, somewhere in the middle. Bench points was fairly high, and again, that's part of that depth that we're, or really our only hope is, getting bench scoring with an expansion team. So that was a plus. Second highest percentage of bench scoring in the league. Our opponent's field goals made very low, but we just didn't have to score a lot to beat us is really the story here. So anyway, there's some of that. If we look at player stats for the team, let's go to the advanced stats, and we'll just kind of sort by position here. Look at the point guards, and I'll just scroll through and let the stats speak for themselves. Oops. So you can see Whitehead in limited time played very well. Norris Cole played above average. Not bad. Shooting guards both did well. Nothing crazy, above average, but we'll take that. You can see here, I mean, look at this. The performances here by our small forwards. So talking about Kevin Durant fitting in on this team. I mean, we just got nothing out of that position. Taj Gibson, a really nice year. David Lee off the bench, nice year. You can see centers, we're going to need a little bit of help there. So those are really two areas. If we look kind of at that, there's so many point guards in this draft. If we look at that true point rating, where is it? I passed it up. There it is, pure point rating. So it says born from the conversion or the conventional assist to turnover ratio, pure point rating values a turnover is more costly than an assist. The stat exclusively looks at a player's ability as a pure point guard. So Looking at these particular ratings, Norris Cole, the highest, Lawson. You get a lot of negative numbers here, though. It's not something we're really looking at for the bigger guys, but just to give you an idea, right, if we kind of scroll through some other teams, we look at their starters, 5.9, 8.9, 6.9, 3.3 for Kemba Walker. So, Norris Cole, he wasn't bad. Same exact PPR as Chris Paul. So again, a little deceiving. It's hard to truly know, but I see the player efficiency rating, good. Not bad at all. So usage as expected. These are actually it's not. Taj Gibson is a little bit lower, but the three guys that we were really focused on this year: Gibson, Thornton, and Powell. So there are some player stats. I think that about does it. So let's go ahead and advance to the off season here and see how things look. So we have a new wish list item that Kendrick Price has shared. The sixth man on our roster should have a rating of 74 or higher. I think that's completely obtainable, and I'll tell you why here in a second. Hopefully what's also obtainable are some new shoes for my guy. Look at those sweet shoes. I do think we will accomplish this. And I think the reason is I would like to see a Norman Powell, who's a 74. I'll be our sixth man. I like him a lot. Just after seeing him as a full season, just not sure if he's really up to carrying that sort of load we were expecting him to carry. So, and we're all about depth, so there's really no reason our sixth man can't be a 74. All right, so now we're talking to the CFO, Chief Financial Officer here. We're going to be allocating the funds for this year's budget. So there is going to go some of that $7 million we originally were showed to have. In the bottom right, it says we have a profit of $5.3 million. So let's review our budget here. And player payroll. We'll do that one last. Staff payroll. I think I'm okay leaving that at 7 for now. Arena operations, it affects the concessions and merchandise sale. Team operations affects morale and free agent interest. I think I'm going to max this one out. Promotions affects ticket sales and fan interest. Let's also max this out. Arena operations, I'm not super. We just don't. When you look closely at the, what you're making in concessions, you're looking at like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not a huge amount, so I'm not going to spend millions to make a few extra 100,000. So we're going to leave that. Our staff payroll, we could probably max out almost all of this, right? Let's see if we can. Pretty darn close. Oh yeah, look at that, we did. So we maxed out pretty much everything. So if I hit auto, let's see what so this is when I hit auto, what they recommend. More or less maxing that out. Pretty close. The only difference is I'm not too worried about the arena operations. I liked it like this. Oh, that's weird. Now I can't. There it goes. Okay, so back to 0. So yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Pretty much maxing everything out here. We are going to have to make some money this year by maxing this out. So let's just take one last look to make sure that we don't want to leave ourselves any money. And I don't know if they look at that, if you have like just a remaining balance, if that goes towards your operating costs, but now let's give it a whirl. So there we go. Let's see if we will be able to get to the draft lottery. I think we can. I'm pretty sure we can. None of this stuff's going to take a lot of time. So let's do player retirement and look around. So Kevin Garnett calls it a career. Paul Pierce, Muhammad, Miller, Terry, Brand, who is a free agent, Tyson Chandler, Ginobili, Steve Blake. So some big names. calling it a career. No real surprises. After that, it's going to be staff retirements. So let's head to staff retirements. Assistant coach of the Trailblazers is all John Smith. A nice dirt stash. Hall of Fame inductees. Kevin Garnett and Pierce. No surprise there. So there we go. Jersey retirements. Manu Ginobili of the Spurs. This is a nice touch. You don't see this in any other game, do you? Certainly not in a console game. You'll see it in maybe like out of the park baseball. But I mean, this is that attention to detail that the 2K team has that just other sport games just simply don't yet. But this is really cool. And notice that Paul Pierce is having his number retired with the Celtics. So again, just a nice touch there. Very, very cool. So as you go through, of course, you can see kind of the all-time. So let's see if they actually already list. Yeah, there's Paul Pierce recently added. So very cool. That is just a really, really cool thing. All right, Kendrick Price, our owner, says, "Hey Mike, thanks for stopping by. There's discussions going on in the league about changing some of the rules this year to keep things fresh and make the game better. I'd like to hear your thoughts on them." In MyGM, I cannot remember if you have the ability to overwrite. I think this might be your best way to override if you're super concerned about something, is you can kind of tell your owner, heck no, and then what I've noticed is most of the time it kind of steers the game away from that decision. I can't confirm that's exactly what happens, but I know in my league you can, of course, override these particular decisions. So hopefully we don't see anything too crazy here, but if so, that's part of this mode. I mean, the leagues do evolve in all of our professional sports that we watch, so let's see what's on the docket here. I definitely want to give some feedback on these, so I really appreciate the opportunity to have a say in this. What are the new rules being discussed? One of the rules being considered to be instated is league expansion. Add one new team to the league. Any thoughts? That's interesting. That's interesting because we just had the two. That's interesting. I almost want to say I don't care. Just kind of see, because I don't think they're gonna. The leagues almost never vote in favor of this. And if so, it'll just add a new wrinkle, right? So I'm gonna say I don't care. Good to know. One of the rules being considered to be instated is abolish the luxury tax, no penalty for exceeding the salary cap. I'm going to say also that I don't care, just because it'd be kind of neat to see how it kind of changes the team's approach. So I'll say I don't care on that one either. Let's let them vote. One of the rules being discussed is draft lottery. The worst team will have improved odds of obtaining a top 3 pick. I'm gonna say don't care here. I kind of want to agree with this one, but I want to just see how the league actually votes. I want to stay impartial on these so far. Let's see. Opposing teams will enter a 1+1 bonus after 5 team fouls and a full bonus after 10 in an overtime period. I'm gonna say I disagree with that. I want to try to keep the game rules for now as close as we can. Let's see, this one is draft lottery. The top 6 picks are done through the lotto. Remaining picks are determined by team record. That's interesting. That would bump us out of the lottery for this year, so I'm going to say disagree. Just selfishly for our Grackles, we want to try to move up there, not get the 11th pick. That will be all. Appreciate your time. So let's see how these rules play out. Here we go. League meetings. Let's see. They're not going to add an expansion team. They're not going to adjust the luxury tax. No change to the top 3 pick. No change to the bonus rule. And no change to the lottery for the top 6. So nothing is being changed. Let's see if anything was even close. We have a new CBA after next year. Let's see, I think, how many votes does it need? It needs 24, so we almost got an expansion team. We were pretty close. That was the only one that was even close. So interesting. Well, it is now time. As I mentioned, this would be the last thing that we're going to look at, and that would be the expansion draft. Or, I'm sorry, what am I saying? The draft lottery. And let's see. I'm just checking my list here to make sure I got everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I think that's it. So let's see where we're going to end up with the draft lottery. So you can see we are slotted there at the 10th pick, and we have a less than 1% chance of actually winning the top pick in the draft. We would have had almost 3 times those odds if we had finished in that 9 spot or higher. So as of now, Celtics with the best chance through Brooklyn's pick. The Suns, the Kings are also there. And if that's a top 10 pick, it's going to be Chicago's pick. I'm sorry, if it's not a 10, it's the Kings pick unless it's a outside the top 10. Then it'll go to Chicago. And then Hornets, Magic round out the top 5. The Grackles are 10 as I mentioned, but the Mallards are not in the lottery because they made the playoffs. Good for them. So let's see here. This should be the Nuggets pick. And it is. So the Timberwolves, no surprises so far. 12 consecutive seasons. And that updates too as you go through this mode. It's pretty cool. All this information is accurate. It's got no surprises yet. All right, let's see if we are going to jump up at all. Nope. So we're getting the 10th pick. So hey, it could be worse. Still no surprises. The Suns drop from 3. And the Celtics drop from number 1. So the Heat are on the top pick. And wasn't that the team that was number 9, like right above us? Darn it. They had a 2.9% chance. That could have been us. That's all right. So there it is, folks. That is the end of the draft lottery. I'm going to wrap up this episode here. Thanks so much for watching episode number 3. I'll be back with episode 4, which is either going to be during the draft or right after the draft. So thanks again for watching. I am Mike Lowe. Follow me on Twitter, MikeLowe_OS, MikeLowe_OS for Operation Sports. Also the YouTube channel. Go ahead and click subscribe, and that'll update you on when I'm getting these new episodes out. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I will see you on the Operation Sports forum and on Twitter and elsewhere. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you all soon.